Everyone is a star child, made of stardust and the infinite potential of the universe. This extraordinary fearless something in each of us clamors for freedom from the bonds of fear, conformity, and an ordinary life. Welcome to Dr. Durr's Living in the Sweet Spot, where practical tools and solutions from the intersection of mind-body medicine, science, and spiritual well-being awaken and empower you to live out your infinite potential, to live life in the sweet spot. Imagine being told by 5 neurologists that you have a life-threatening brain illness and that you only have 6 months to a year to live.
It was a neurologist who, in 1986, first told me I had an inoperable, fast-growing, life-threatening brain tumor and only had 6 months to a year to live. While I was in the hospital for the next 2 days, no one even talked to me about the elephant in the room, which only increased my fears. Later, 4 other neurologists told me the exact same thing, that I'd be dead within a year. I decided they were all being narrow-minded. I'd already learned that everything was made of energy, including me, and that love is the most powerful form there is. I'd felt that surge of energy when we fall in love, or when someone is attentive to our needs. So I chose love to heal me, and it worked.
That was the experience of my guest today, Sandi Gold. Sandi was an artist and suddenly started having symptoms. And then when she went to see doctors, this was her experience. She also felt like some of the doctors weren't really listening to her and really hearing what she was saying and what she was experiencing and why it mattered and why it was specific to her. And so we're going to talk about her journey to wellness and how she learned how to trust herself for her own healing and how her work was a part of that.
Hello, Dr. Durr.
Hi, Sandi. I am so glad to have you on with me today to have this conversation. A little bit before when we chat, I said, you have such an energy. I call it this kind of love energy, this peaceful, calm energy. And I said, you know what, this is exactly what we need.
Thanks.
Well, you are more than welcome. And again, thank you. So, go ahead and tell us a little bit about that, because that must have been shocking to say the least, I'm sure, when you first heard that, and potentially devastating at the worst. So tell us about your journey.
Well, it was 1986, and I was told, like you said, by 5 neurologists that I had 6 months to a year to live. In the very first appointment I had with my doctor, he accused me of not telling him all my symptoms. And I said to him, I'm paying you $350 an hour. Believe me, I'm telling you everything. And he even turned to my then boyfriend and said, what is she not saying? Thankfully, he agreed with me. But I was really upset that here this man I'd gone to help save my life was not even believing me. But the good news is it showed me that I had to figure out what I needed to do to save my life. I mean, it was horrible at the time, but it fell onto my shoulders because no doctor could help me.
I think the thing that is that I think is really key for any of us, and particularly we're talking about our health, but also when it comes to our lives, is that because it's my life energy, my life force, and what is it that I want to do? And so, to your point, that we can't rely upon other people to always know or understand us or know what's best for us, and why they can help facilitate our healing. Or as I like to tell folks, I said, as a physician, I'm here to help you heal yourself, but I can't do it against your will. And I don't know everything, so I don't always get it right. So it really is a collaboration. That's how I tend to look at it. And so it's because I'm in the role of helping, of supporting, of aiding you, then I can't heal you against your will. And right. And on top of it, there are things, because it's your body, that you're more in tune with than I am.
Absolutely. I do want to emphasize, I am not against doctors. However, doctors, if we didn't have this inner wisdom, if our bodies didn't know how to heal ourselves, there wouldn't be such a thing as doctors, right?
Wait a minute. Well, tell me some more about that.
Doctors have learned in med school how the human body heals itself and what they need to do to assist it. And some of them are great. There are some wonderful, wonderful doctors that are willing to, that have the capability and know how to assist our body's healing. But what I encountered is so many doctors refused to even think that I had a part of my healing at all, that I had no part in this. They just wanted to impose their beliefs on me, even though they told me they couldn't do anything for me. I mean, it was bizarre. It was very bizarre. What happened was, just weeks after I was diagnosed and I was running around, trying to find a doctor to save me, is I had a bad day. Up until this point, I never even cried when a doctor told me I was going to die, which I'm not saying is a good thing, but I was extremely stoic. It just didn't make sense to me, and I thought they were being rude because they didn't even know who I was. They weren't asking me any questions about me, and so I never shared any feelings with them in that regard. I didn't feel safe to cry in front of them.
Yeah.
But a few weeks later, it hit me. And I was thinking back, I was an artist, I am an artist. I was thinking back about the paintings I had painted that year. And one was of a dead fish hanging upside down by a rope. One was of dead carnations. One was of a woman holding onto a grave. Another was of my grandmother who had died of a brain tumor. And it was the scariest moment of my life when I realized that death had been following me through my own paintings. I mean, I had no idea. I'd never seen that before. And like the cartoon character, Wile E. Coyote, I believe is his name, when he runs off the cliff and all of a sudden his little skinny legs start pumping away, trying to go back. Well, I was really tripping out in my head. I was so scared. And that's what I did. And when I pulled myself back, suddenly I was filled with incredible love. I mean, it just enveloped me all throughout the entire room. Everything looked more beautiful. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
And I decided, would I rather follow what 5 neurologists told me, that I'm going to die? Or would I rather follow this love, this energy, this higher power, this God, whatever you want to call it, that's speaking to me through my artwork? And that's when I decided to choose love. And that's why I titled my book, I Chose Love.
So yes, let me actually share with folks a bit more about you, and including that beautiful title that you've written, that was released. I Choose Love, that was released in January of this year. And so for those folks who may not know, we're actually, Sandi is actually kind of famous. She is a classically trained fine artist. Again, she's released her new book, I Choose Love, at the beginning of this year in January. And her story was so riveting, so captivating, that she was actually featured on ABC's 2020. She was profiled in People magazine, and she's been in the New York Times, the Boston Globe, the USA Today, and hundreds of newspapers throughout the United States. She's also been interviewed on National Public Radio and the Connecticut Public Radio, and been a keynote speaker at various institutions, sharing her journey and of healing and the wisdom of the body. So I think that when I say to people about, when you were talking about, again, physicians, I, as a person who identifies as a spiritual being, or an energy being, because that's everything in the physical world is made of energy. It's just organized in a certain way to appear as you or as me or as the trees and the grass and the, so everything around us, right? It's so because we are energy beings, but as I said, as I like to say, again, our energy being needs hands and feet, needs hands and feet, so that we can get things done, right? So we can move around on the planet, we can move around in the solar system, and so in that regard, that then it's important, one, to take care of it, but two, also, because everything is composed of energy, then everything is connected. And because everything is connected, that means that the wisdom of all there is, right? The all-knowing wisdom, that we're all connected to it. It's just a matter, do I recognize that? And therefore, do I tap into it to access it? So the body has the wisdom to heal itself. It's just sometimes it needs support or help while that's happening, right? For instance, if you get in a serious car accident or something like that, your body is probably going to need support to allow itself and allow time to heal, right? If you break a leg, you may need a cast or a boot or crutches, those things again, and a surgeon to assist the body and support the body while it heals.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so I'm very much in favor of, that kind of that holistic, all-inclusive approach. I think that, again, though, there is a balance. And as someone whose medical specialty is psychiatry, I think it's important to keep in mind that certain solutions are necessary for certain issues or certain problems, right? When I go to my own doctor, Sandi, they're like, what medicines do you take? I don't take, on a daily basis. I don't take any medicines on a daily basis. I said, I take a lot of vitamins and minerals and supplements. I said, that's why I think I don't have to take other medicines on a daily basis, because my intention is to give my body what it needs in order to build healthy cells that function well and that create health. So, it's also important to keep in mind that I would say the natural approach, again, has its place, but not everything that's natural is going to heal you. As I like to say, go out there and eat the wrong mushroom and see what happens. So, but I think what's really important, and why I really wanted to have the conversation with you today, is because of the fact that I think that we don't trust. I think we have trouble trusting ourselves, and therefore I think we have trouble trusting our bodies. And I think the reason for that is because we're really not in tune with ourselves. We're really not in tune with the body. So we don't really understand it, and therefore we don't really know what it needs.
I believe in many ways it was a blessing that at age 33 I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, because I learned so much. And one of the first things I did, I mean, probably days after I was diagnosed, is I went and saw a therapist who specialized in the terminally ill. And one of the first things she did to me was hook up my fingers to a biofeedback machine and told me, through the use of my mind, to heat up my hands. And in front of me was a bunch of numbers, and it would beep, and the numbers would go up as my hands got warmer. And for the first time, I felt like I had control in my life since I've been diagnosed. I had no idea my brain could do that, could heat my hands. And so that was the beginning for me. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I wanted to say, when you were talking about energy, is love is the highest form of energy. So of course I would choose that. And that was something I also realized, that everything was made of energy. I hadn't thought about it before, but of course Einstein taught it to me in probably elementary school, or not himself, but I learned from Einstein's theory. And so that was the other thing. When I had my back up against the wall, what do? Well, what's the greatest form of energy? I'm energy, so why wouldn't I choose love? And then as far as our body's wisdom, our bodies tell us when we're hot and cold. Our bodies tell us when somebody's not safe around us. We get that icky feeling. Our bodies tell us when we have to go to the bathroom. Our bodies tell us when we want sex or we don't want sex. I mean, our bodies are forever telling us things. And so it's not that big a jump when it's telling us what's good for us medically and what's not. And that's what I did. I used my body's knowledge to navigate through the medical field.
So, I wanted to ask you something, because you said, of course, that why wouldn't you choose love? Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is, as many of us human beings, we choose fear often, mm-hmm. often. And so I think that in the recognition of that, then I wonder, why you chose love. In the sense of, I know for you, the way you talk about it, it almost sounds like there wasn't another choice. However, there is, mm-hmm. and because, since again, so many of us choose the other, right, choose fear. So what do you think it took for you to choose? Was it courage? What was it that it took for you to choose love? Well, and then also how you saw that as the means to heal yourself.
Okay, first I want to say that our systems are taught, our nervous systems are taught to always look for things that are fearful to protect us. I mean, that's how and so of course we're going to react with fear. I mean, that's only natural. It's unbalanced in that way. I mean, I'm not saying I wasn't fearful. However, it was that day that I realized my artwork had the theme of death, and I suddenly felt an incredible amount of love, that I realized how powerful love was and how it felt wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't felt wonderful in a long time, since being diagnosed. It was just such a nurturing and wonderful feeling. And I knew that, I know how I did it. I wanted to be as close to God as I possibly could be, because I felt that was who was speaking through me, through my artwork, through my own beliefs. You don't have to believe in God. This is my belief. But I felt like I just wanted to be as close to God as I possibly could. I wanted to attach myself to his ankles. And the only way I knew how to do that was through love.
I'm going, does God have ankles?
God doesn't even have a gender. And I think it's funny I went through all my books in college and went, she, against every single time he was said, I would, she, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's all up to what feels right to you. And that's the other thing I wanted to say as far as doctors it's so important that they don't treat us like we're on an assembly line. I mean, I would have died if I had jumped on that assembly line. It's so important that they see us as individuals. After all, we were created as individuals. I mean, we all know that our fingerprints are all different. Our hair color is different. Our eyes are different. Everything is different. So I don't know why doctors don't recognize that we are individuals and treat us as such, except it's very costly and probably takes them a lot of time.
Well, I think it's more than the fact that it's costly and it takes a lot of time. I think that it's important to keep keep in mind how Western medicine, or it's also called allopathic medicine, is taught, and it's and that shift is occurring away from this model solely, or what was missing, because there's very much, I think, a significant shift to recognizing a more holistic, integrated approach by some physicians, not saying all, that one, your experiences influence what structures your DNA produces, right? When you come from a place, and there's, it's a very old research study where they were feeding these high cholesterol pellets to some rabbits, and obviously seeing how that affected their cardiovascular health. And instead of the research assistant just giving it to the rabbits, or tossing it in the cage or whatever, the research assistant would actually pet the rabbits, and would pet the rabbits, and nuzzle them, and so just be affectionate with the rabbits. And what they discovered is those rabbits did not have the cardiovascular illness, the heart illness, and the illness in their plaques in their blood vessels that you would expect from the diet alone, because what's happening is, what we think we are chemical electrical beings also, in terms of the body is. So what I think and what I feel creates chemicals, and those chemicals get released in the body and they take effect. So if I'm getting loved on, right, I'm getting loved on and petted and held and getting affection, that's releasing chemicals in my body that in that case was offsetting the harm of that diet. But if I'm in a situation where I'm under a lot of stress, then and a lot of stress kind of consistently, continually, kind of every day, without much relief, then there's a whole lot of release of those stress chemicals, which then decrease our immune system, so we're more likely to get sick. Then our blood sugar is unregulated, and then you can have problems, with diabetes. You can also, it doesn't regulate your blood pressure properly either, so that can be too high. So there's more of that understanding and recognition, that then how I think and feel is turning genes on or turning certain things off, which is then creating other illnesses, potentially like cancer, as well as those other ones I mentioned, or not. And so there are more doctors who are, taking that more holistic approach. So to your point, I think it's really about, we have to keep in mind that it is not something that you can just kind of easily dismiss, or think this is real frou-frou, real superficial, doesn't have much meaning or value. To say that coming from love is actually to my benefit, can heal me, can help me, versus fear can actually harm me and create illness, and persistently, and potentially has its persistence can potentially lead to my death. Because the other thing too is, and the body can't heal and it can't protect at the same time. I mean, it can't grow and protect at the same time. The dominance is one or the other. So I think, again, I thought that this is why this was such an important conversation about choosing love, and about how that is, healing and beneficial. So before we get into the specifics of that, let's take a break, and then we'll be right back. Heaven abounds in you, enlightens, uplifts, inspires, and invites you to live a life that's engaged, joyous, and limitless, the sweet spot of life. Take this journey in oneness. We are and have all that God, the infinite creative source of the universe, is. You are infinite potentiality, and the kingdom of heaven is within you. Heaven abounds in you. Hi, I'm your host, Dr. Balin A. Durr, here on Dr. Durr's Living in the Sweet Spot. And joining me today is my guest, Sandi Gold. And again, Sandi is the author of the book, I Chose Love. And we were talking about her journey in healing from a life-threatening illness, and how she chose love instead of fear, in order to help her heal herself, and choosing to trust the wisdom of her body. So you know what? Before the break, we were going to get into how you chose love to help you heal. But I also think it's important to kind of set the stage of, if you don't mind sharing what exactly they diagnosed you with, and some of the treatment, and I know you had some side effects too from the treatment. So what did they diagnose you with exactly?
They actually diagnosed me with a hemangioblastoma in the pons section of my brain, which is the absolute worst place to have a brain tumor.
Okay. So it's a brain tumor, and it's in the pons. And so you were saying,
well, that's what they originally diagnosed me with. But
okay,
because the pons, which is on the top of the brain stem, it looks like a little tulip bulb. We use 100% and we only use 10% of the rest of our brain. Everything is compact in there. And so it's very hard to actually read it. So later on, I've had doctors that believe it was an arterial venous malformation and not a hemangioblastoma at all, because it wasn't growing as quickly as they thought it was growing. So, but the doctors told me it didn't matter what you called it or what it is, because it needs to be treated.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify for the audience, and we call it AVM for short, the arterial venous malformation. AVM, really what that is some blood vessels that they're not designed properly. That's the way I would say it. And because they're not designed properly, the pressures are not managed the way they should be, and there's a really increased risk of bleeding in the brain, which of course could lead to death.
Right. Well, to most people, it leads to a severe headache. Mm-hmm. I believe, I don't know how many people remember when, I believe it was Senator Johnson. Actually, it happened when he was on the Senate floor and he was rushed to the hospital. However, with me, because again, it's in the pons section of the brain, I was told it would bleed in my 30s, and I was 33 at the time, and then I'd be dead in 5 seconds.
Yeah, that has to be shocking to hear.
But you know what it also did? I always look at the positive side. I know it sounds Pollyanna-esque, but it made me realize I didn't want my last thought to be something icky, to be something mean and nasty. So it really made me think of living life to the fullest and being and using love to guide me.
So what did they? So how did they treat?
Actually, nobody offered me any treatment at all. However, I was being tested in a, what do you call it, teaching hospital.
Mhm.
And I just had an angiogram, and I had to keep my legs straight for 8 hours, and I'd finally fallen asleep
Mhm.
when this doctor came in leading a bunch of students.
Mhm.
And I did not greet them warmly because they woke me up. But then I got excited when I realized, oh, he's going to teach them something. Maybe I'll learn something that will save my life.
Mhm.
So he grabbed the my chart at the bottom of my bed, and he started to read it, and his face went totally white. And he started to shoo the students out of the room because there was nothing he could teach them. I was a goner.
So you know what? I'm sorry. I've heard, you know what, in another interview you said, I've heard you say that. And of course, the first thing that I thought for me was, um, of course, there's things that he could teach them. Um, Even in our most difficult situations, there are opportunities for us to learn. There are opportunities for us to grow.
Well, he at that moment didn't feel there was. And
Okay.
this is a man who had operated on Ronald Reagan after Ronald Reagan was shot. So this was an incredible doctor. And I'm guessing that for what he wanted to teach the students, there was nothing he could teach them at that moment. So the man had his hand on the doorknob, and I just shouted, I've been told I was going to die. Can you help me out? Do you have any ideas for me? And
Mhm.
he must have held onto that doorknob for a good minute, that poor man, until finally I said, I again said, can you not help me? My doctor said I'm going to die. And he turned around and said, I know somebody who's doing something at Mass General Hospital. I don't know his name, but I can tell you the name of a doctor who does. So it's kind of a convoluted way. I did find the doctor who had pioneered the use of a cyclotron machine, which was discovered during World War II for defense purposes. He
Mhm.
was using it to beam 7 patients every Tuesday from all around the world. I was one of the few English-speaking patients there. And basically what he did is he beamed me so that scar tissue formed over, whether or not you call it the hemangioblastoma or AVM, so that it couldn't grow, and it protected me, and it dissipated the AVM, let's say. But it took 2 years.
Okay. And so I can imagine how that might have been excruciating, waiting 2 years to see if it was going to work.
Well, also because he told me 2 things. The treatment itself could cause it to bleed if it was an AVM, and I'd be dead in 5 seconds.
Mhm.
And I've lost my train of thought. Oh, I know, I could get radiation damage because the pons is the most sensitive part of the brain to get radiation damage. So I had a huge decision to make.
And what was that?
To have the treatment or not.
Okay.
And I immediately said I wanted the treatment. I just knew I was supposed to have it, although I did get radiation damage, and that was the absolute worst. And that affected me for the next 30 years.
Okay. So you said you immediately knew you should have it.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell me more about that.
Well, as I said, the doctor was on the phone with me and telling me all the negatives, but I don't know. And my body said I'm supposed to have this, and I went with it. And I don't regret it, although I did get radiation damage, which was horrible. I had excruciating, what I call migraine headaches, but doctors have told me they're much worse, and they were from the radiation damage. But I was having trouble just living at that point.
Okay. So I think that one, in making the choice, because obviously what we're talking about today, that I think it's so important again, is about, learning to trust the wisdom of the body. Some people may call it your, your instincts. Some people may call it your higher self.
Mm-hmm.
Some people may call it the the still small voice. Again, so how did you go about choosing to trust that?
I suppose it was just instinctual. While still on the telephone, he said, you take a while, to think about this, but don't take too long because the waiting list is long. I said, I don't need a while. I know I want to have this.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you had, obviously the side effects from the treatment, and, how, difficult that was. What did you have an approach or process that you used to help you manage that, or to help you heal that, or?
This is really when I got into complementary medicine, because every single time I went to a doctor, they just couldn't help me. I mean, they would try, but there was nothing that could help. I mean, nothing. I mean, I went for everybody, but finally I found a naturopathic physician who listened to me. I mean, really would listen, and we would try different things and it would heal. But then another side effect would pop up, and again we would do the same process. She would listen, she would try to figure out, she would give me something, it would work, and then another side effect would pop up. And this went on for a number of years, and nobody, not even a naturopathic physician, could help me with my migraines. That was the most frustrating. And if I told you how I got rid of them, it's really a silly story. And I wouldn't believe it if somebody told me.
So how did you get rid of those migraines?
So a girlfriend invited me to a party, and I said to her, I'm getting a migraine. I'm afraid I'm going to throw up. I have to leave immediately. Thankfully, she listened to me, and I thought, oh, what an angel. And I was outside and within minutes, and she said, I want you to come to my house and wrap yourself in my blanket. Well, I looked at this woman like she had two heads, and I said to her, I just want to go home and wrap myself in my own blanket. Thank you very much. As people know, when people have a migraine headache, you really don't want to mess with them, Anyway, so she gave me the key to her house and said, I know it sounds ridiculous, but just, you gotta, next time you have a migraine, stop by and wrap yourself in my blanket. So I was driving by her house one day, and I thought, oh, what the heck? And I wrapped myself in her blanket, and the migraine went away.
So what kind of blanket was it?
Well, it's called a Solaris blanket. Solar meaning sun. I mean, I literally have to put my blanket in the sun every 2 weeks to charge it. Do you know how, what do you call them, astronauts? Oftentimes their bones get compromised from being up in the air. Well, the Russian astronauts, some of them, their bones were being compromised and some of them weren't. And they would try to figure out why. And they realized it's because the astronauts who kept their spacesuits on the longest were not being compromised. Well, my blanket is what was lined the astronauts' spacesuits. And what it does is it reflects my own energy back at me. Solaris blanket is what it's called. And like I said, if anybody told me the story, I would think they were nuts.
Okay. So it's well, I know, because one of the things I wondered too was, is it weighted at all? Is the blanket weighted at all? No. Okay.
I mean, it's a little. It has what is more expensive than gold? Is that platinum? Yeah, it does have platinum wiring in it. Okay. But it's not. I wouldn't call it heavy, like a weighted blanket.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so the lack of gravity over a period of time is causing the muscle wasting and the problems with their bones. So that's new to me, the Solaris blanket.
Solaris, yes. Solaris, Solaris, Solaris.
Okay, Solaris. Okay, got it. And then, the other thing too, which was that I obviously wondered about was, and you brought this up about you noticed that death was in your paintings, and I'm wondering how because I can imagine your art would be a crucial part of your healing journey. How it, what role it played. So what role did it play?
Oh, I actually am now a certified expressive art specialist because I truly believe that art helps us to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So,
so
and how do you
yes,
think, and how do you, so here's the thing. I'm one of those folks that I tell folks, I don't want to go out. I don't go out and figure out how my car starts every day. I know how it starts, so I can go out and start it successfully. So I think if I understand how something works, I think if people understand how something works, it and they're not kind of stuck in it, believe it or don't disbelieve it. Is it true or is it not true? As opposed to this is how it works. And so so I can do this every time and get the results I want pretty consistently. Yes. Tell me, because obviously art therapy is a part of the things that we certainly have on the inpatient unit, that we'll have patients use as part of their stay to help them get better is art therapy. So how does that work?
it's actually not, well, in traditional sense, when we think of art, we think of the finished product. Whereas expressive arts, it's the process of doing art. That's the
Mm-hmm.
healing part that we focus on. And it's because, again, we're connecting with the inner wisdom within ourselves. In other words, I tell a lot of my students when I was teaching, to paint that were stuck, to paint with their opposite hand, because that way things could flow. And there was nothing stopping them from connecting to that inner wisdom within themselves. You paint not using your head, like I was classically trained to figure out all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but to use that which your body is telling you to do.
Oh, okay. I like that, because I think, again, in order for anyone to make changes, uh, to create better health, or to create better relationships, or to create anything that's a different experience in their lives, we have to be able to tune inward. And I think the difficulty is we're so outwardly focused, because that's how we're trained and conditioned
Yes,
to look
yes.
outward, that because I'm not looking inward, then I'm not aware of really what I'm thinking. I'm not aware of that subconscious programming that I got as a kid that says this is who you should be, and this is how you should behave, and this is what you should become, and this is what you shouldn't do. So we're not all aware of that. And then you're not aware of how I'm feeling. So we're not aware. Then all we know is I'm in pain and discomfort. And I don't like the way I feel, and human beings don't tolerate that for long periods of time. So they reach outward for something, whether it's a substance, like drugs or alcohol, whether it's shopping, whether it's plastic surgery, whether it's gambling, whether it's sex, whether it's whatever it is, that we reach outward for, trying to decrease our discomfort and our pain, as opposed to just saying, going, hey, what's really going on with me? Let me be in touch with that. Let me sit with that. And then let me be guided by, again, my internal wisdom of how to address it, so that I can actually find a solution for it, as opposed to keeping on more problems because I'm using something that was never going to help what was really bothering me in the first place.
You got it right on. Absolutely. And the ironic thing is, what we persist, resist. I'm sorry, what we resist, persist. In other words, while we're fighting against feeling the pain's increasing. Whereas if we just allow it to pass through our body, it will pass, and a lot quicker than we can imagine.
Right. So another way I phrase what you're saying is, what you resist, it persists, is because you're not dealing with it. So, what's in here, I've got some water, right? And so wherever I move the glass, the water goes. And so that whatever is within me that's bothering me, just like the water within the glass, it goes with me wherever I go, because I'm not dealing with it. And as we well know, the things that we neglect, they just tend to get worse over time. The way I say it is, then we get interest and penalties on top of the principal problem. So now we got more problems,
Right.
or worse problem.
Right. Absolutely. And then we shame ourselves. and that adds to it as well. Important part of healing has been learning to love myself and to treat myself as compassionately as I treat my friends.
So did you have difficulty, judging yourself, being
Oh,
judgmental?
oh yes. Oh yes.
And why was that?
Oh, because of the family that I grew up in.
Okay.
It was right. No, feelings were not allowed in the family that I grew up in, and so when I got sick, it made them feel horrible, and so they blamed me. My siblings to this day don't talk to me because I made them uncomfortable.
Okay, so again, the way I frame that is, nobody can make you think or feel anything. Now, what I can do is I can activate my presence, or behavior can activate what's in you, but I can only, again, draw out of you what's in you. Again, there's water in here. There's not juice, lemonade, milk, pop, champagne. So I can only get out of here what's in here, which is water. The same thing is true with the same thing is true with people. I can only draw out of you what's in you.
Correct.
The other way I say it is, can I make you be an astronaut? No, then I can't make you feel anything.
We don't have the power to make people act however they act. The people act how they act. We have nothing to do with that. I can't make somebody angry.
Well, I won't say we have nothing to do with it.
I won't say that either.
Because again, my presence can draw out of you what's in you. So I won't say it has nothing to do with it. But what I again say is, I don't make you feel anything. I don't make you do anything. I don't make you think anything. I think, and that's different.
Right. When people trigger me, and they still do to this day, I don't blame the person for triggering me. I look at what's inside of me that's being triggered, and I learn from it. I heal that. Why am I feeling so vulnerable with this person? What's going on with me? The other person was just a catalyst.
So I think that, to your point too, is important, is the recognition that I choose how I feel, I choose how I think, I choose what I do in response to whatever the trigger is. And so I have the power because I'm choosing. You have power because you choose. Another way I say that to folks, when somebody comes ring your doorbell, you have the choice to answer the doorbell or not, and how you answer the doorbell in terms of how you interact with them, if you choose to answer. So if you think of your trigger as like the doorbell, you get to choose if you answer the doorbell or not.
Right. That's a good analogy. That's very good.
Well, thank you for that. Thank
you.
And
learning ways to empower myself was such an important part of healing. I couldn't go around blaming other people, because that's giving my power away.
So you know what? So in terms of the book, I chose love. How specifically, does that talk about, that healing process and what you've done in terms of that journey? Very specifically.
And I wasn't going to bring my family into it at all, but I learned so much from them. And I dealt with them. I wrote about them as lovingly as I possibly could, because I understand where they came from. I understand where my mother's family, I understand my siblings' family. I understand why nobody ever learned how to deal with feelings, and why they were so fearful. And I think that story alone has gotten so much attention, because so many people can relate to that and can now understand why people treated them the way they have been treated.
So so Sandi, that just makes you such a wonderful being. We're wonderful beings, regardless of what we say or do or how we look, because being is not defined by behavior or performance or results. We're made to be whole, complete beings before we come here. And so But we get confused about that, and we start to think that, I'm what I have, what I did, what was done to me. That's my results or my performance. And, again, my appearance and my possessions, which we are not and we never were. But I think one of our greatest spiritual lessons are the things that you talked about, which is uh, non-judgment, non-attachment, non-resistance, and then having compassion for ourselves and for others. And because if I'm beating up on myself, then I'm not focused on the solution. And as I tell people, if you take two negative numbers and add them together, then what happens is you get a larger negative number. So the judgment and the criticism is more negativity. It's, more negative energy, more negative frequency. So that's just going to add to the difficulty. It's going to keep you stuck to it, tied to it, and you're not focused on solutions, and you can't find healing. So the compassion for self, not judging others, is huge. And if you basically are judging yourself like that, then not only are you saying I did something wrong, which in spiritual terms we say conviction, but then you're condemning yourself, which means I'm wrong and it's wrong forever. So I tell folks is, stop judging and condemning yourself. Come on down off the cross. Jesus don't need no help up there.
Or I'll say, God doesn't need an East Coast representative.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. So, how does your book talk about love as a part of your healing journey? And obviously your healing journey, of course, like many of us, is also the healing, the childhood wounds and those experiences. So how have you used love to heal yourself?
In so many ways, every single step of the way. I mean, I wanted to strangle that initial neurologist when he's telling me I wasn't telling him all the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
But I went into my heart and just realized, he just doesn't have the tools that I need. And so therefore, I'm being pointed in another direction. This is actually a loving thing. And I just continued that. And I continued that with every single step. And also, as well as treating myself as lovingly as I possibly could. My mother actually told me I was being selfish at one point, that I'd become selfish. And I wanted to cheer, because that showed that I was finally, allowing myself to have needs. I was finally recognizing that I have to fulfill my needs if I'm going to live.
I think you've made some wonderful points. There's a difference between being selfish and self-centered. Mm. And again, in my faith belief, people are the vessel. They're not the creators of me and the universe. So if you didn't create me, you didn't design me and purpose me. So you can't tell me who it is I'm supposed to be and what it is I'm supposed to do and what it is I'm supposed to look like. So when if you say that I, as an African-American female, there's a problem with me because of my physical appearance, but you're not the creator. So go take it up with the creator. Okay. If you think I should be in a different profession, again, go take it up with the creator. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think that, again, you sharing love for yourself and compassion for yourself and compassion for others, that and then that connection to self and trusting that self, of course, is absolutely connecting to that wisdom and that you said that love frequency, that love energy. Because as you were talking about, Einstein, really the theory of relativity is just that energy. What that means is energy and matter, other physical things, in other words, they're interchangeable. It's just energy is taking the form of a tree. And then when that tree stops existing, it takes the form of something else. And the same is with us. So that's what it is. Energy and matter are interchangeable and they're moving back and forth. So if we understand that, and again, as you pointed out, that love energy is a high level of energy that is going to be healing, that's going to promote health, that's going to help us also detach from the past and whatever harm we may have, but it frees us up to live in the infinite possibilities of this moment. Right?
Yes, yes. I want to applaud that. You're good. You're very good. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. And also I think too, because again, I've mentioned this, with you too, is but then it also, you are sharing that love energy, and it's so warm and it's so comforting and it's so healing. I mean, to others, right? And that is a gift and a blessing. And something else you said too, and I don't want to forget this because I think it too is important, which is simply this. You mentioned that people don't always have the proper tools to love us, to value us, to be in relationship with us. And that is so important for us to recognize.
Yes, yes. My family does have addictions. And so therefore they were compromised. And rather than dealing with their stuff, they used. So of course they couldn't deal with me having this diagnosis. I mean, it totally freaked them out and they just didn't have the tools. But it took me a long time to figure that out because it blew my mind, because I always thought I was loved in my family, and I still believe I'm loved, but I never thought I'd be treated the way that I was.
Yes. So in this last few seconds, please tell us where they can find your book.
Oh, actually, they can find it at Amazon and every online bookstore. However, Amazon has me listed as I Chose Love by Sandi Gold. You have to put in the whole thing, otherwise it goes to I Choose Love. So I would suggest going to my website, www.sandygold.com. And it comes in softcover, ebook, and audio.
So fantastic. I would certainly encourage the listeners, in terms of just connecting to self, connecting to the wisdom that your deeper self is, and to also to share that love, healing energy again with yourself and with others. To please get Sandi Gold's book, I Chose Love. And thank you so much for being with me today, Sandi.
Thank you so much. It was truly a delight.
I am your host, Dr. Balin A. Durr, awakening and empowering you to live out your infinite potential, to live life in a sweet spot. I'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us today in the sweet spot. Share, follow, and like us on social media. To learn more, please visit balinadurrmd.com, spelled BALINADURRMD.com. Join us next week, and remember, when you heal your mind, all things are possible.